Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Sam Dever podcast. In this episode, I talk with Daniel J. Silva. Daniel is an actor, a teacher, an improviser, a translator, an interpreter. He does many things. He's a really cool guy. I met Daniel when I first came out to Los Angeles through the acting community. We've had a lot of amazing conversations. Daniel's someone I've had a lot of good conversations in the realms of discipline and self-improvement. Taught me a lot about the acting business and just all around a great guy to know. And we had been talking about doing a podcast for a while, and the day finally came. We set it up. Here it is. I really hope you enjoy our conversation. The book of the episode is Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Daniel and I actually talked about this book on the podcast, but Jordan Peterson's someone I have been following for a while, and my friend Julian actually got me this book as a gift. Thank you, Julian. And what I like about Jordan Peterson is he's really about self-accountability. It's not really about finger pointing or blaming everything on everyone else, but really looking at yourself first. So if you're into that type of realm of self-improvement and perspective, again, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Daniel. Okay.
Right.
All right. I think that means it started. Welcome to the Sam Dever podcast. Daniel,
right.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. This is thank you. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm glad we just, hey, let's set a date and let's do it. And we did.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? It's amazing how the mind will try to talk us out of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like I think I talked about this on the last podcast, or maybe I didn't. But you know, you get caught in analysis paralysis, or you get caught in this thing. Well, when the time's right, and there are certain circumstances when that is true. But then it's like there is never a right time most of the time. You know?
Yeah, well, it's like people. I don't have kids, so I can't speak from that experience, but it's sort of where a lot of parents have to get to when they want to have their first child. It's like, come on, there's never really a good time to have a kid, right? I mean, it's always going to be an inconvenience if you're only looking at the practical level of stuff, you know. But if you want to have kids, then have kids, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you just have to jump in, and there's really, no other way to go about it,
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there is a balance. You don't want to be crazy, and we have a saying in Spanish that we say tirarse a la piscina aunque no haya agua. It's like saying throwing yourself into the pool even if there's no water. So we mean like you don't want to jump in the pool when there's no water in the pool, right? Like there is a balance about jumping in, but also doing things, I don't know, with a little bit of rationality, right?
Calculated risks, maybe another realm people would talk about.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so man, it's good to see you. Good to talk to you. I guess maybe we'll start with the acting, just because that's how you and I first met.
Let's start with the acting. Yeah.
Let's start with you do a little bit of that, don't you?
A little bit, yeah. I know a thing or two, but yeah.
No, I remember you early on because I met you right when I first came out to LA.
That's right.
We met through acting, and early on, like I remember we would have some good conversations, and you were one of those first people that really painted the picture to me about trying to become an actor in Los Angeles professionally. Like so many people come out here, and even myself, I'm like, oh, you go out there and you just start acting and stuff. And you were like one of those people like, well, there's a process to this, and there's training, and there's this, and there's that, and you got to get management. And I remember some of our early acting rehearsals we had, like you really educated me. I'm like, man, there's a lot to this. So,
oh, thank you. I mean,
maybe share a little bit about your acting journey.
Yeah. I mean, where do I start? Short version, long version. When I was a kid, my parents I was only like 6 or so. My parents took my sister to an audition because someone had seen her, and they thought she was funny and cute and she could be in commercials and that type of thing. So they were like, well, what are we going to do with Danny? Let's just bring him along. Right. So this was back in Madrid in Spain. So that's where I was born and raised. So I hopped along, and I remember there was this scene where I was supposed to be mopping, and I was supposed to throw the mop on the floor, say, I don't want to mop anymore, you MFer, or something like that. And I started laughing and like, oh, I'm cursing, that type of thing. But for some reason they thought I was good. I think it was between me and some other kid, but they told my parents that I would have to miss a lot of school. And I was in the first grade at this point. And my parents are very conservative with certain things, right? So you're like, no, he's not missing school, right? And that was that for a while. And then cut to 10 years later or so, my sister again said, we used to go to the same school, but she's my older sister, so I always kind of followed a bit in her footsteps. Said, there is this elective of theater, and it's really fun, and you can get an easy A. Like, I would take it if I were you. Like, okay. And I took it, and I had a blast. And for me, it was much more than about getting an easy grade or passing. Like, I really took it seriously, this play, right, that we did. And then it just grew from there. Then I came to California for a year, and I started getting into improv and more acting lessons. And then I just took every acting lesson I could after school, and when I got into college, where I studied communication, I got into a drama school in Madrid at the same time. So I would go to drama school in the mornings, and I would do my university in the afternoons. So it was pretty intense, but it just grew and grew and grew. And then I thought, why not go to LA and pursue my dreams? I mean, if I wait any longer, I'm probably not going to do it. Just kind of like what we were talking at the beginning about waiting for the perfect moment. So I just moved here. Yeah. I did it.
And I think I remember, didn't that drama school you went to in, you said Madrid?
Yeah.
It was pretty intense, wasn't it? I think I remember you telling me about that. It wasn't like a 3-year program or something?
It was a 3-year program. Yeah, it was called the Municipal School for the Dramatic Arts, because it belonged to it was sort of subsidized by the government and stuff. You had to do an exam to get in and all that. Yeah, I mean, it was 3 years, 5 days a week. And we had movement, and we had verse, and we had voice class and singing class one of the years, and a lot. And we studied all the classics. We even had a subject that was just studying the classics. We had to read old plays, whether it was Shakespeare or classics of the Spanish literature, like Calderón de la Barca, Lope de Vega. We studied Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller and George Bernard Shaw and all that, So it was great. I had a blast.
You had a little bit of preparation before you came out to Los Angeles.
Yeah. But I mean, there was still quite a bit of a learning curve, because none of my subjects were on camera.
Okay, so when you came here, like, it was brand new to you then.
Yeah, I mean, my only on-camera experience was from the commercials I booked back in Spain, and from doing little shorts with my friends in college and saying like, no, do less, not so big, like, oh, okay, I'll adjust. But I had never had an on-camera technique class.
Your commercials are amazing, by the way. I was going to look that up. I went back to your Instagram, and I'm like, man, Daniel's done a lot of commercials. And they're good. They're really good. They're funny. They're good. So those were all overseas. You had done those.
Yeah. It was my first commercial in Spain. It was for a big lottery company thing, and I was dressed as a chicken. And the word for chicken in Spanish is pollo. So all my friends started calling me pollo, and I have some childhood friends that still call me pollo to this day. So that's kind of funny.
And now that we're on this stream of work, I've seen you. I had to bring it up. I forgot all about it. Was it called Bacon Bad?
Bacon Bad. Yeah, Bacon Bad.
Could you, for any Breaking Bad fans out there, could you like give a brief summary of what that project was, because it was incredible.
Yeah, I think it's still on YouTube. You can find it. It's basically a parody of Breaking Bad. It was shot at the same time as the last season of Breaking Bad was wrapping up, and I play Jesse, right? And we just add bacon to the formula. So you'll have to see. It's not
I
bad.
it made like Tosh Point oh, didn't it? Didn't you say it got on?
Well, I did two. I did two different Breaking Bad parodies. Bacon Bad was something I did with some people that just did it on their own, like a spec project. And then because I had done Bacon Bad and I had that footage, maybe like 2 years later or so, I was looking through the breakdowns and I saw that Tosh Point oh needed a Jesse Pinkman lookalike or something. And I just sent them Bacon Bad. And they just gave me the part in no audition.
I mean, what else do you need? It's like, boom, I just did your work for you. So where is so let's bring it up to the present now. What's, and you've obviously been way more active. I haven't been active at all in any of the acting stuff, but I just wanted to see what's it like out there. What's the state of things, and what were you currently doing? And I also saw you're doing some type of live performances. You can maybe give us a snapshot of what's going on.
Yeah. So basically, a bit before the pandemic started, I joined this improv team. It's an all Spanish improv team called Impromundeando. And if you look it up, it has that weird long name, Impromundeando, because we do a play on words with mundo, world, making up a verb like impro, worlding, and that's because there's 7 of us and it's very diverse. So there's 2 of us that are from Spain. There's a Mexican person. There's an Argentinian person, and a Puerto Rican, and 2 Colombians. So and it's great. We were rehearsing live, and we used to do different improv shows throughout LA. And then obviously the pandemic started and everything shut down. And we decided to keep our rehearsals going via Zoom. And then we started doing shows via Zoom, publishing them on Facebook Live. So for a whole year plus, every single Wednesday, we did a show via Facebook Live, an improv show. Yeah. And thanks to that, we had some people starting to follow us in Colombia and in Mexico and in Peru and in Argentina. So we built a little bit of an audience because obviously, they can just connect from their countries via Zoom and watch us live. And now last Wednesday, we did our first show back in person.
Wow. Did you guys stream it as well, or was it just strictly in person?
We took some videos that we're just going to use for promotional purposes because we don't have a good cut from beginning to end. But that's the plan, actually, to also stream it so we don't lose this audience in Colombia and in Mexico and in Peru.
Wow. So that's kind of almost a hidden blessing then, in a way.
It was. Obviously, one prefers to do shows in person. You feel the energy and the laughs from the audience. Via Zoom is sort of like, I did this. Hopefully they like it. Moving on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
But it was a blessing in disguise because now there's people out there that know about us. So yeah.
Were there any, and you kind of just hinted on maybe one of the cons of it, but are there any, how did it strengthen your performative skills by going on purely online for a year? Like, what were some things that, oh, wow, I've improved in this area because of this?
I think it just helped us as a group because we were able to watch the shows, and that was actually one of my duties of the team was to rewatch the shows and give everyone notes. I was the bad guy, so in that through reading notes and commenting, we got that. We're getting better at that group think, right? Obviously now there's a little bit of a learning curve again, adapting again to do shows in person, but we're much better thinking as a team and performing as a team, right? So that would be one. And I think 2 is sort of another on-camera technique training, right? Because you're seeing yourself on Zoom, like you see your frame, and then you watch the show and you're like, oh, I'm moving too much, or I'm not speaking loud enough, or too loud, or my eyes are doing this thing, or whatever, right?
Yeah, no, totally. And it seems maybe that it would make sense because I guess if you're live all the time, obviously it feels good to be live and in person, but maybe the
Hmm.
Zoom caused you were able to kind of separate yourself a little bit and look at it from a different lens.
Yeah, and I think as actors, well, I think people in general hate the sound of their own voice. They hate seeing themselves recorded. They're like, "Oh, my posture. Ugh, what do I do with like? Do I really sound like that?" It's difficult. I don't think any one of us. eh, I don't think it's natural for anyone to like the image of themselves when they see a recording, right? But it's necessary. Like you have to watch yourself to get tips. I was watching this interview of Kobe Bryant, rest in
Mm.
peace, because
Yeah, rest
I'm
in
a
peace.
huge basketball fan, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about, I don't know if you know anything, like when he retired, he was coaching his daughter's team
Mhm.
and all that. And he was talking to this young girl in college who suffered I don't know, a devastating loss in the finals of what's I don't know the college tournament name because I only follow the NBA. Was it the Final Four or
Final four, the final of the
and
NCAA.
NCAA, the NCAA. So anyway, they suffered a loss, and she was very bummed about it. And he asked her, "Did you watch the game?" She's like, "No, no, no, I can't watch that. Like that's horrible. Like I would say." It's like, "Well, I know it's uncomfortable, but you have to watch it because you have to see your mistakes, and improve." So we try to apply that as much as we can.
I love that. I love that. And I also still hard to believe he's gone, man. Like how you'll drive around LA and you'll see the murals and everything. It's such an amazing, not just a basketball player, but just human being in general.
Inspired a lot of people. Yeah, yeah, and I'm one of them.
And piggybacking off what you said there, I had an acting teacher tell me he summed it up so brilliantly. Because acting, I feel it's very easy to take things personally because it's you. It's like, no, we're criticizing you.
Well, and they used to tell us, remember in class, Chris, take things personally. Remember?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, right, right. And one of the teachers, it was actually Mr. Carnegie, said, I'll never forget this when he said it. He's just like, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines: the second you can recognize your deficiencies, you can then take the steps to correct them. And I know that sounds really, really simple and obvious, but when you're caught in your head and you're caught in your ego, when you're caught in, oh, this person just told me that I'm not, it's like, screw them. They don't know what they're talking about. But man, if you can remove that and just look at everything, like, how can I get better? How can
Well,
I?
yeah, you can't be afraid of the truth, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that's really limited me for years. Maybe it still does now to a degree, which is not wanting to think about certain things, not wanting to face them because it's just too stressful, too difficult. It's kind of like the person who's super overweight and doesn't want to. They don't want to measure themselves or they don't want to weigh themselves, right?
Mm.
Because it's just too traumatic, too painful. But as they say, what gets measured gets managed, right? So if you don't measure something, then you can't see your tiny little progress. And that's the other thing. If you can see, like, let's if we keep going with the analogy of weight, right? You may not see any changes in the mirror for a long time. But if you weigh yourself and you see that the number is going down or the number is going up if you want to build muscle or whatever the case may be, you're like, oh, wow, I am making progress. But you wouldn't know that you're making progress unless you measured it, right?
Yeah, I feel that way, especially with the injury I've gone through the past year. It's like you
Oh,
don't notice it
yeah.
every second of the day. But then
Uh-huh.
when, yeah, you do on a weekly, monthly basis, you're like, oh, wow, I'm farther along than when I was
Yeah.
back then, And even if it's just a little bit, you're still farther.
And you can't really tell that, or it's hard to tell if you don't keep a record
Correct.
of somehow. Yeah.
I love this already. There's already like 10 clips I can grab.
Okay, good. All right. Got a
Here's a
click?
good wealth
That's
bank
great.
of info here. Um, So yeah, when we were talking a little before we started recording, and again, thanks for the Zoom tip. Uh, I know you
Oh,
said
yeah.
you're pretty well versed in Zoom, and one of those areas besides acting you've used it in, you also do some teaching. And
Yes.
I was wondering if maybe you could give us some perspective on maybe what exactly you teach and what's teaching been like for you during this time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I teach Spanish. So as I mentioned earlier, I was born and raised in Madrid, Spain, but my mom's American, so I always grew up bilingual. And teaching, even when I was back in college in Madrid, I used to teach English, just tutor for extra cash. And when I moved here, I started teaching Spanish. And it just started as a survival job, something I could do to make a few bucks. But it grew and grew, and my interest in it and my love for it grew and grew as well. So I'm very fortunate because I love teaching. Otherwise, it would be pretty miserable, right? Having to do something every week that you don't like to do just to be able to be in LA and do acting. But I really like it, and most of my students are adults. I have a few groups, and through teaching, I work with a company that gets me students and stuff. I've been also able to do some live translation jobs, live interpreting jobs, which was pretty scary in the beginning. But I did it once. They were happy with me. They called me again and again and again, and now I do it pretty frequently as well.
Wow. Now is that separate from the acting realm,
That's
or is that
separate from the acting. Yeah. So acting is I'm in the same camp as everyone. I try to get auditions. When I get them, I do my best and hope for the best, right?
yeah.
So there's the acting, the auditioning portion. There's the improv, which we do. It's our own thing. There's the teaching, and on top of the teaching, there's the live translation, live interpreting.
Yeah, it kind of it moves me. I want to talk more about your teaching, but it seems to me like you found a good balance in your life. You love acting, you're really good at it, you work really hard at it, but you also, you know, are like, hey, I'm doing all I can in this, but there's another part of my life and you know,
Mhm,
paying bills and doing all this other life stuff
mhm.
that you got to do, but have found I don't know, it seems that you found like a nice balance with life, and you're very cultured, you come from a different country, I think you're into music, aren't you, and a bunch of other things, so
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I found the balance. I think the balance is something that you can never say, "I found it. I'm good."
right.
Like
Yeah.
you always have to be tweaking, and as soon as you think you are balanced, like whoop, but don't forget about the acting. That's the main reason you're here, right? Or don't forget, or whoops, now bills are piling up, and you haven't been as disciplined. So yeah, it's always a constant challenge, but I am happy with my life in that sense. Music, um, yeah, I play guitar. I have a Spanish guitar. They're over there. You can see the Spanish guitar and an electric one. I play when I can. That's another thing that in that balance I've neglected a little bit lately. Playing more, learning new songs. It would be very, very generous to call me a musician. I'm not a musician, but I'm a huge fan of rock and roll. I mean, lots of bands. I love guitar, the sound, playing. Yeah, I love it.
Is that something you grew up doing in Spain?
Well, no, I started when I was 16.
Okay.
Yeah. 16 was kind of a magical year for me because that it was basically the year I got more into acting, 15 to 16 and in guitar. So I kind of found my own.
So the arts just
Yeah.
like hit you at once.
Yes. Yes.
It's like sold. One last question about teaching. I was going to ask you what
Yeah.
do you like most about it?
What do I like most about it? I'll try to keep this short.
It doesn't have to be the thing. Maybe
Yeah.
just take one of the
Well,
things you like
I'm
most.
fortunate to work mostly with adults, so they want to learn. They're paying to learn. They don't have
Ah,
to be in there, right?
that's interesting.
And I love seeing the progress in my students and how excited they get about learning more with the good ones, right? And doing more. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of my journey starting with acting
Hmm.
and how many questions I would ask all my teachers. I would drive them crazy with all of those with all those questions. So I don't know. It's hard to explain one or two things. I just kind of enjoy seeing that they get it and they progress, and they notice that they can feel that they're progressing and they get excited about it. So it's kind of an upward spiral versus a downward one, right?
Yeah, it's I was having a talk with someone, and not necessarily like in a classroom setting, but it does seem the older you get, like you were told certain information when you're younger, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, whatever. But now when you get older and you get into reading and
Hmm.
self-improvement and things like that, you're like, oh yeah, like give me more, give me more, give me more. You're like thirsty for it. So that's interesting you said that you're dealing with people that are proactively wanting this
Hmm.
uh, service that you're offering.
Yeah. 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 It's great. I mean, I think it came pretty naturally to me because my mom's a teacher and my sister is a teacher, and my grandma used to be a teacher and my grandpa as well. So it
Wow.
must be somewhere in the blood, you know?
Yeah.
And I think actors, not every actor is a good teacher or likes to teach, but I think there's a little bit of an overlap in terms of one wanting to express yourself and wanting to be understood, you know?
Yeah.
I think the best actors are the ones that are generous in terms of in the scene. They wanna give everything to their partner. They want their scene partner to shine, and they wanna really communicate the ideas of the text, not just say it to, look pretty on camera or on stage and sound cool. Like, well, this is me saying words in a very interesting way. Like, no, you want to reach that other person with your words, with your ideas. And when you're teaching, you're doing the same thing. Like, you really want your student to get it. Hopefully, if you're a good teacher.
Yeah. You just don't want to shout things at you. It's a dance, right? Like it's a communication dance. Same with acting. Same with just communication in general.
Well, yeah, it's like if you're my way to see it is most of the time, or ideally, you're not talking just to talk. You're talking to communicate something,
Mm.
right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, you could apply that to both acting and teaching, right?
Yeah. And it reminds me too of it's not the same thing, but when it comes to listening, I was reading something today, and it just reminded me of how many people uh, talk. They're not really listening. They're just waiting for their turn to talk.
That's
So that's
that.
kind of like the opposite end. Like you may be trying to communicate through something, and if someone's shut off and they're not hearing anything, you're never gonna takes it takes two to tango, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the exciting thing as well, right? I mean, I think you and I have learned this in doing Meissner work.
Mhm.
Even if a scene has a text and stage directions and a director and rehearsals and all of that, there's still quite a big of an element of improvisation,
Mm.
right? Because you don't know what's going to happen, and you should be able to react and know what's going to happen. If you knew how everything is exactly going to go, then you would everything would just be boring, right?
Yeah, and you have way more stage experience than I do, but I was lucky enough before the pandemic to get, a few rounds of stage in at
Well, you did
Playhouse.
quite a bit. You were at Playhouse longer than I was, so.
Yeah, and you also went to a bunch of other places and been involved.
Yeah, but you.
Right, right. But anyway, in my own experience, that's one thing. Um, Shout out to Wolf. Shout out to Wolfgang Bodison, because he really taught
Yeah,
me
well,
what the feeling of the stage can be like, and exactly what you just said. It's like, oh, we're just going to do the same thing every single night. It's like, no, you have like this outline that we got to follow,
mhm.
but sometimes you don't know what's happening in between the outline. Like it can be a completely different experience each scene, each night, each whatever. But that's the fun of it. It's when you more you build your confidence doing that, the more it's fun to go out there and just
Yeah,
jump out the
e
plane with know that you got your parachute and you're working
exactly,
with
like,
someone.
yeah, you still don't know what's gonna happen, but you are just more confident that whatever it is, you'll be able to handle it, right? And I think that's what happens when you do improv and when you've been doing improv for a while. Of course, it's still going to be improv. It's not like, oh, through these many years of improv, I have all these tricks that I know I'm going to do the thing. Like, no, that's not a good way to do improv, right? You want to be open to whatever happens, but you're just more confident that you'll be able to handle it.
Mm.
I had I did this workshop with Larry Moss. Do you know about him?
Yeah, I got his book. Right? You're the one that told me about his book, The Intent to
Oh,
Live.
oh
Right?
yeah, that was me. Yeah, probably. It was probably me. I don't know if it was somebody else, but yeah, yeah. And I've done several workshops with him. And the other day, for whatever reason, I was going over my notes, and I remember he was talking about Geraldine Page, who studied with Uta Hagen for 8 years, and Uta said about her student Geraldine Page. To the class, she said, "Do you guys know why Geraldine is the best actress here? The best actress is better than anyone here, including me." And they're like, "Why?" And she said, "Because she's not." Now I'm butchering the quote, but she said, "Because she's not performing on stage; she's exploring. She's doing an exploration on stage."
Uh,
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting.
I think someone said too one time. That's a dope story. They said if you want to watch true acting or the best at it, watch
Mhm.
a cat. Now I'm butchering this, but it was something along
Yeah,
those
yeah, I know. The
watching the
animal.
cat go across the stage because the cat isn't concerned that you're watching it. The cat's
Exactly.
just being a cat. There's no other. Whereas we get up there, it's like, all right, there's an audience, and I'm gonna do this at this, and as opposed to just letting it all go and just explore. I love that story.
Yeah, and I think my personal experience, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, is especially when you're doing comedy. Um, have you realized that when you know there's a joke coming and you're sort of expecting the laugh, part of you is like, ba ba ba, and you're kind of waiting for the response, and it doesn't work or it falls flat, right?
Yeah.
But other times you're not thinking you're saying something funny. You're more in the reality of the scene, like like I said earlier, like communicating the ideas to the other character or to the other actor, and then all of a sudden you hear laughs. You're like, oh, this is pretty good. But you can also, but you have to be careful not for that to throw you off the moment, right? You have to stay in the scene.
So when you're doing improv, I mean, you really have to be unattached to it all. I mean, not that you should, it's because you don't know it's all improv, right? I mean, you don't.
Yeah, well, we have certain structures, so
Yeah.
it's not improv like 100% just go. Like we have certain games that we know how the game works,
Okay.
and we have certain techniques in terms of in this game, normally this is almost funny every time. So, for example, I don't know. Do you know how much improv have you have done, or do you
I
know?
haven't done a lot of it. I've definitely watched a good amount out here, like going to shows and stuff. I personally haven't really done too much training with it at all.
Oh, well, I did the UCB training and all that, but like for example, you ever saw the program Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of games sort of like that, right? And one of the games they did, and one of the games we do, is called the translator or different language or something. Normally, someone speaks in a made up language, right? Gibberish, and there's someone translating what he or she says, right?
Mm.
And then, so a technique that could be an example of something that almost always works is the person in gibberish says something very, very long, like, and then you just translate yes or no. And then most of the time people find that funny, right? So that would be an example of something you kind of know it works,
Yeah.
right? But it's still improv in terms of there's no script to be learned. There's no words that you learn in advance. You just know that you have to do a certain thing in a scene, right?
It's kind of like a tool in your tool belt
Yeah.
type of thing to pull out, and maybe okay, now might be the time to let's pull this one out.
Yeah. But obviously it's improv because I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what he or she is going to say, right? We don't know how long the scene is going to go for. So yeah.
Yeah, and this is starting to lead me into that's something else I wanted to talk to you about. One thing about moving to Los Angeles that I am very grateful for is meeting so many people, but meeting so many people from not just across the country, but from around the world. You being one of those people,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't grow up. I grew up in the United States. I haven't really traveled outside of here. My experience is basically talking. Worldly experience comes from meeting people that have been worldly, and
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple things, but just with staying on the improv, I'm like, wait, you're doing this all in Spanish, correct?
Yeah.
So what is it like? And is Spanish your primary language?
Yeah.
So that was the thing you learned first.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable in Spanish than I am in English. I've done improv in English when I went through the UCB program,
Uh-huh.
but I feel a little less comfortable doing it in English than doing it in Spanish. You
See, and that's insane to me because you speak very good English
know?
and obviously very good Spanish. So what is it? I guess I'm just curious. What is it like to switch between doing it in Spanish, what acting or improv or whatever, then switching over to English? Is it just like switching out a template for you, or is it like an entirely different experience?
Um, switching to well, that's a good question. I I think through most of my life I've been switching a lot. So when I speak to my mom and my sister speaks to my mom, with my sister and I always speak in Spanish to each other, but my mom and I mostly speak in English, and my dad and I always speak in Spanish, right? So I've been switching through most of my life, so sometimes I don't really know what language I'm in, you know. So I like to whenever I watch a show, I like to have the subtitles because it bothers me when an actor mumbles and I can't understand and I have to uh, put it back. So normally I watch it in English with subtitles in English, but sometimes it's been 5 minutes or 10, and until I realize I've been reading subtitles in Spanish instead of subtitles in English, you know.
Wow.
Or I was doing a translation gig the other day, and I was supposed to translate English to Spanish, and I think for some reason I started talking in English, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Daniel," I was like, "Oh, sorry, wrong language," and I started speaking in Spanish. So sometimes that happens, you know.
Wow, that's a totally different. I mean, from someone who doesn't speak a second language, it's just wow. It's like so many things are challenging in one language, but to
Hmm.
not just you, oh, I speak a little. No, you like speak too fluent. Not just speak
Yeah,
it, but you perform it and act it, and
yeah, yeah.
it's
I mean, I was lucky. I was very lucky because a lot of it had been given to me since birth, you know.
real something that it's funny. Like when I start having these conversations again, especially because we haven't talked in a little while, is
Yeah, yeah.
there's another gym you gave me about acting. I'm going to tell you about.
Uh-oh.
Gave me the tip, and I did, especially during this past year where I've watched a lot of pilots. You're the one that told me, hey, if you want to see why great shows are great shows, go and watch their pilots. You had told me that.
Oh, really? Did I
Yeah,
tell
you
you that?
did. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds I don't even remember. It sounds like
And
me,
you're
but
spot
yeah.
on. You're spot on because all these shows, like for instance, I watched the Eric and I actually watched the Sopranos pilot. I had never seen Sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
I watched
That's
the
good.
Sopranos pilot, and I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
I see why they set it up. So just that's just a random
Well, yeah,
Daniel tip.
I have completely forgotten that I said that, so thank you for teaching me that in return, you know?
Yeah, because one of the things that when you and I would have like weekly, biweekly calls,
Well,
sometimes
that's right.
you had told me like one thing you were working on at the time for your acting was dedicating yourself to watching, like I don't know how many it was, but it was maybe a few times a week you'd watch like a half-hour pilot, um,
Mm, mm.
just to study why. If you go watch like why some shows became huge shows, like let me see what got that picked up. Like what was it? Like the Breaking Bad pilot, for
Oh,
example,
yeah.
phenomenal. You know.
Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned probably my 2 favorite shows of all time with Breaking Bad and Sopranos, you know?
Really?
Well, yeah,
I
they're
guess
probably
yeah.
both in the top 3 or top 4, yeah.
Better Call Saul's pretty good too if you've ever watched.
Oh, I saw a little bit of the first season.
Uh-huh.
it didn't grab me, but I was watching it on the plane, so maybe I need to give it maybe I need to give it a more of a shot. But yeah, obviously the same creator, Vince Gilligan, right?
Breaking Bad is a true masterpiece. I'll never forget watching that season, in my opinion, that season finale, and thinking like, what else do I want? What else do I want?
What
And of
else is
course, they
there?
did the spin-off with Jesse
Oh, the
afterwards.
movie. Hmm.
Yeah, that was cool. But that the way it all went down, I think it's been out for a long enough time. People, if spoiler or not, like just the way that ended
Yeah, it
with
was.
Walter White, I'm like, it was so poetic. Just like
Yeah, yeah. It was. It's phenomenal writing. I mean, you
I was satisfied.
those type of shows are they only come around once in a blue moon.
What's interesting too is watching Sopranos. I noticed it's crazy. We're talking about these two shows. I made the comment, and maybe Vince Gilligan did or he didn't. But I noticed Sopranos use certain camera angles that are very Breaking Badish, very Breaking Badish, like these far away diagonal
Well, it would be the other
shots.
way around though, because Sopranos came out earlier.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Or you would say
Maybe
Breaking Bad would show shots that are very Soprano.
Breaking Bad might, I guess, Breaking Bad might have been influenced somewhat
Yeah,
cinematography wise by
by the
Sopranos.
Sopranos. Yeah, yeah.
Could have been.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's it. I'll keep my eyes peeled for that if I ever rewatch Breaking Bad, or Sopranos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but everyone watch Baking Bad first.
Bacon Bad.
Bacon
Yeah.
Bad first. That's
And that in the episode with Taj was called, well, it's a fart porn. So watch Bacon Bad or fart porn, and you'll see me saying cursing a lot. Can we curse on your podcast or no?
absolutely.
Okay, so you'll hear me saying bitch a lot of times.
Oh yeah. Yo, Mr. White.
Mr. White, we
Uh,
can't.
one topic I definitely wanted to go into. We talked, about you being bilingual, but growing up in Spain, growing up in that, I have had so many, and I've never been, but I've had so many people tell me, like, man, Europe is amazing, but dude, Spain, like Spain and Greece, are like the two places people are like, you gotta go to those two places. Could you maybe give us a little insight to what it was just like growing up in a place like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to me how I am perceived or was perceived because in growing up in Spain, Spain, especially when I was growing up in Madrid, it's a lot less diverse than a city like Los Angeles, right? So pretty much everyone is Spanish or other, right? You don't have a lot of diversity of race, cultural, et cetera, et cetera. So my sister and I were the bright blonde kids. I was super blonde, and she's a redhead. So everyone always assumed we were from someplace else, and they would always ask us if we were British, if we were Russian, if we were German, because we didn't look Spanish. Even though nowadays that doesn't apply anymore because everyone is mixed up everywhere, right? So it's interesting how, and even some friends of mine will call me the American, and in a good way. I didn't take offense or anything like that, but I was always seen as the American or the one that looks British or German or just not Spanish, right? Not fully there, and they would always say, "Man, you like all these American music and American movies," and then when I come here, I'm the Spaniard or the European, So it's always like I'm a little bit different than where I am. So that was part of my experience. And then I don't know, what did you want to know in terms of more general how life is there?
Maybe what might be a better way to maybe a comparison from what it
Oh, a
was like there
comparison
to what
about
it was
how people behave there versus
here.
here.
Yeah, maybe because one thing I've always heard about Spain in particular, and
Mhm.
obviously correct me on any of this if it's any of this is out of place, but uh, way more laid back. Like I've had a lot of people tell me it's way more laid back. Where
Mhm.
America, we're this work, work, work culture, work to the bone, hustle, hustle,
Mhm.
hustle. Where Spain and maybe some other European countries have more of like, hey, we work hard, but we also enjoy life at the same time at a slower pace.
Yeah.
I've always heard that. So is that any truth to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Um, I think Spaniards value comfort, security, and just having fun,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
A lot of them work really hard as well, but um, it's a very, very social culture. So, especially at certain ages, to not go out on a Friday night or Saturday night is unthinkable. you know so yes, you have to study, you have to do your homework, you have to work and all that, but you need to go out on Friday or go out on Saturday and make plans like that. And I don't think Americans think that way for the most part,
mm,
right? I don't know. I mean, when I was in Spain, I was very, very critical of Spanish culture, and I was very, very admiring of American culture. And then living here has made me appreciate more things about where I came from, right?
mm.
So yeah, um, people are very social. They love to talk. They love to dance. They love to go out, have a beer, drink. Um, Something I admired more, liked more about coming here was that the diversity, because in Spain, people are very much the same in a lot of things. Again, now it's different with the expansion of the internet and all that. But when I was growing up, when I was a kid, it's like everyone saw the same channels on TV. Everyone went on vacation to the same spots. Everyone studied similar majors in college if they went to college, and had similar jobs, and just drove similar cars, and everything was very much the same, you know? So thinking out of the box was difficult at times. So that's kind of and it must not just be a Spain thing, it must be a European thing, because I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger in interviews when he would talk about Austria that he had a similar criticism for people in Austria for that, you know?
Really?
Whereas here is like you could be completely different than your neighbor, right? In
Yeah,
every single way.
yeah.
But I don't think it's all good or all bad, because I think when there is that commonality, it also gives people more things to talk about and to have in common when they first meet.
Mm.
So I don't know, maybe there's a balance there.
Yeah, and I guess I mean, I don't know. I've been so about the present moment as of late, especially just uh, it's funny with Meisner training. They teach you all about being present.
Hmm.
Me going through an injury and doing all the spiritual work and realize, but everyone comes back to being present. I'm like, man, Sandy Meisner really, really had some life philosophy there. So I guess when I ask this, when I say long term,
Hmm.
uh, could you see yourself moving back over that way someday, or do you see yourself going back and forth?
Back to living in Spain.
Yeah, back to living in Spain or anywhere
Maybe,
else.
yeah, maybe, because it depends on, obviously, it depends on my career, where it takes me, and it depends on if I want to form a family, right?
Mm,
And if I do, which is something I do want to do one day,
mhm.
it would maybe make more sense to do it back home, because my parents are there and my sister is there, and I would want my kids to be close to their grandparents,
Yeah.
right? And also, um, I, LA is a very expensive city,
It is.
and to think about buying a house or whatever the kid needs in terms of school and stuff, I mean, the cost would be, I haven't even sat down and calculated, but it would be astronomical probably,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to be rich just to like have a kid, right?
In Los Angeles, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't mean it has to be in LA, it could be a different part of the US, but that those are two big factors where it would probably make more sense if I wanted to raise a family in Madrid, you know? And also, I think, look, LA, it's a wonderful city where you could meet. In some ways, it's wonderful. In some ways, it's terrible. Maybe like where you could meet people from all over, and it's great that you, as you said, meet people from all over the world. You're always learning stuff, and people are following their dream. And there's a certain energy that it's
Yeah.
contagious about that, which is great. And we have excellent weather, right? But I think it's hard to find a partner here. I mean, that's a
Now
whole
we're
other
into
a whole other
now
can
we're
of
into
worms
the
that we could learn. We could open, right?
You just opened it because whatever I had on the list is gone.
It's open. It's open.
I
It's
have
open.
had this talk with several, both female and males alike, and I was one of those that I won't go off on that soapbox. I'm gonna stay grounded with this. Someone had told me, they said Los Angeles is a very lonely city for single people, and at first I'm like, what are you talking about? It's greater LA metro area. It's like 20 million people. LA County, like all that. It got everything here. But then they explained to me, and this was in their opinion. I've never been to New York City, but from people I know that from there, and the way they describe it to me, it's a lot more, maybe communal would be the right word. You're
You run
pre-pandemic.
into people more, right?
Yeah, you're in big buildings with people, you're walking everywhere, you're running into people constantly, you're taking public transportation. Where LA, you're more spread out. You're
Yeah.
driving to places.
Yeah, you're in your little bubble of your apartment, your car.
Yeah, and then with that too, with what totally agree with you on. I think for an artist, and not that artists can't go. There's so many artistic cities, but LA is definitely up there. I don't know if I call it Mecca, but it's. I mean, for an artistic energy, it's unlike anything I've experienced to some degree. But
Mhm.
with that, when you have people going for their dreams and people that have sacrificed everything to come here, they're focused.
Mhm.
They're laser focused on what they're doing. So it's
Mhm.
a lot of and I've fallen into the same trap too. It's like, oh, why don't I have a girlfriend or this, that, and the other? It's like, well, you look at your look what you do all the time. It's like
Yeah.
you're not making room for that. But
Yeah.
it's not like that was done on purpose. It just kind of naturally happened. So I'm just curious to get your insight to this city and maybe outside of the acting world and maybe into like dating out here and trying to find a partner.
Well, yeah, because for me, um, like I've dated, well, briefly, I've dated actresses and non-actresses or people who are not in the industry, And I think because of the way I grew up, I didn't grow up surrounded by artists, not at all. I mean, my mom enjoys singing, and my great aunt was an opera singer, but it wasn't an artistic household or an artistic in terms of doing it for a living and all that. It wasn't an artistic neighborhood or a city. And I grew up around it's it's very hard to describe it, normal people, right? Everything was very normal. Everything was very it was sort of a working class neighborhood, right? Um, so I didn't meet a lot of other actors. I didn't meet a lot of um, other artists. So I'm kind of used to that, I guess, normality. And I think that it would have its advantages to, let's say, have a serious girlfriend that was an actress as well, because we would help each other and stuff. But also, you kind of want some perspective, right? You want someone maybe who doesn't do that and maybe keeps you grounded in a different way in terms of there's more to the world than than the film industry, right? And then what happens in LA is that when you want to date civilians, when you call it civilians in that sense, right? Is that they're probably a lot of them kind of skeptical about dating an actor because our industry is so unstable that you're probably not number one on their priority list to date someone who has an unpredictable schedule and unpredictable income coming in or lack thereof, right? So then you find yourself in this thing is like, do I only date actresses and just keep myself in that little bubble? Or when I say actresses, it could be writers, directors,
Right.
but um, or or do I kind of fight against that obstacle of a negative stereotypes about actors that apparently there's a lot of them out there, you know? So maybe that's one of the reasons why it's hard to find someone. At least maybe that's been my experience.
I
I
had
think
a
the other
girl.
day I was just matched with someone and it was on Bumble. So she started talking to me and oh, this is a very cute picture. What brought you to LA? And I said acting. No more, no more replies. That was it. Just disappeared. Like,
I had a girl, yes, tell me, and see, it's the ones that were born and raised out here that know too. Like it was going great, like going great. full conversation. We're on the phone talking, yada yada, planning a meetup. And then I told her I was involved in acting. She goes, "Oh, so you're an actor?" And I said, "Well, I said it's one of the things I do." And she's like, "So you're an actor?" And I go, "Yeah, well, yeah, I guess, yeah." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't date actors." And like, I caught myself like, "Well, I I do other stuff, like this, that, and the other." And she's just like, "Sorry." And she goes, "It's not personal." She was very like professional about it. She's just like, "It's not personal. I used to work in the entertainment industry. I've
Mm-hmm.
dated a lot of. It's just something I don't do." And what's interesting, that was a couple years ago at least.
Mm-hmm.
The more you get involved in it, the more you see like what actors go through and dedication it takes, and this and the other. There's that moment where I'm like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
I
I
can
mean,
get
it's
it.
not
I
their
can
fault.
understand.
It's
Like,
not their dream, it's your dream,
right.
And yeah, I find it better now to just be upfront from the beginning and put it on my profile. I'm an actor and stuff. And it's not that I want to be talking about acting 24/7, but I do want to make it clear because the sooner they find out, the sooner they either accept it or reject it, you know.
Isn't it crazy if they just jumped into our conversation to hear what we're talking about, they go, "Oh, what are they about to reveal to someone?" Like, I'm an actor.
Oh, I'm an actor. There's the dark
Oh
secret.
my god.
I should do an experiment like, um, you know, I'm a criminal. I'm a garbage man. No disrespect to garbage man. I'm a this, but worse than all, I'm an actor. Oh, I could take everything else. I could take anything else, but not an actor.
But not that. And I'm with you too. Like, if I met the right woman and she was an artist of some kind, like, great. But I too I want a balance in my life as well. Like, it would be nice to have someone that is outside of all this, and that just I don't regular is not the right word, but just does other things, does other
Yeah.
things, and you guys kind of come together and yin and yang with
Well,
each
and I think also, and I don't know if this would be the case, but I think if you date an actress who's also doing it in the same fashion as you, like trying to get agents and auditions and all that, there could be an element of competition between the two, or there
other.
could be an element of jealousy where one is getting work and the other one isn't.
Yeah,
And I don't know, you don't want to be talking 24/7 about casting directors and agents and managers. Like it's just like if I were to have a kid, I wouldn't, if the kid decides that they want to act, I would support them and maybe teach them a few things, but you want your kid to have a normal childhood and just play, not take them out of school to go to different auditions and always start to worry about that when they're 6, or younger.
and for some of them it worked out, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but it worked out. Well, we see it worked out in sense of maybe they're getting work and getting money, but we don't know
yeah,
how it worked out for their health, and
health or their happiness,
mental health.
or discovering who they are. And I always thought, like, if I were to have kids, I would want to just expose them to a bunch of things, like just
Mhm.
introduce them and see what they like, but not give them a drum set and say, you are going to be the next
Yeah, you're
prodigy drummer. It's like,
yeah.
no, play with the drum set. Maybe they like it. Maybe they'll play the drums. And if they don't like it, all right, hey, here's some paint. You want to
Yeah.
paint?
Well,
You
it
know?
seems totally unrealistic that you can force another human being to do what you want to do. It's like parents that force their kids to be actors. It's horrible. It's like the ones that want push them to be athletes. And
Mhm.
it's like, you need to train 4 or 5 days a week, and maybe you want to try other sports, but no, 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 no. We're just going to focus on soccer because you're going to be a soccer star or you're going to be a basketball star,
Yeah.
and the kid resents that. Probably. I don't know, I've never done it, but it makes
No,
sense,
yeah,
right?
I totally get what you're
It
saying.
makes sense.
Uh, we're getting to almost that mark, but I have actually
Okay.
one thing in the realm of dating. I'm just curious to get your perspective. And again, you're talking to a guy who not only really didn't do any during the pandemic, but especially with an injury this past year, I haven't done anything. So,
Mhm.
for those of you that are out there, is online dating still the way most people are doing it? Or I guess one thing I am making a point to myself is like, man, I really want to conquer this inner, I call it a demon inside of myself,
Mhm.
of approaching women in person and asking for dates in person. And I know it's it's different times, but in theory, um, I don't know if you have a take on that or an opinion, or it's just online the way things are done now.
Oh yeah, I used to do it all the time. I used to
In
approach
person?
women all the time. Yeah, um, pre-pandemic, when I would go to bars and stuff. I mean, it's always kind of nerve-wracking, but I was pretty good at it in terms of when I say pretty good, I mean I was pretty good in terms because most people are horrible at it. So I was a little bit better than horrible. You see what I mean? That's what I mean. Because most guys are like, I'm gonna get another drink. Well, I'm gonna go to the restroom first. And I would just go. I would just do it. I was very like forward like that. I made a ton of mistakes. I got blown out a ton of times, but once in a while I would have success, right? And it was fun. But no, I think dating, what's online dating? It's here to stay. It's
Yeah.
it's here to stay. So you better get used to it. Like sure, if you go to an event and happen to strike a great conversation with someone, that's probably better. But we're kind of still in the pandemic,
Yeah.
and it's just weird. And for me now, I mean, it worked a lot better in my 20s because you have all this energy, but it takes a ton of energy when you go to bars and you approach one and you approach another one and then you go to another bar and like right now like I'm too old for this.
Oh yeah, especially now, man. I hits 10 o'clock at night and I'm done.
Well, you're an early riser, right?
Uh, no, not super early. Maybe 7, 8 on most
Oh, okay.
days.
Because you,
Yeah, I'm not like a
you
five
used to
thirty
be,
six.
you used to wake up
Used
at
to be,
6, right? Or
used to be,
before.
but I'm really big on 8 hours of sleep, and I really, not to say you can't get that with a six getting up at 6 a.m. schedule, but I tend to usually wind it down at 10. Maybe I get to bed by 11. Maybe fall asleep by 12 sometimes, and I just try to hit that 8 hour mark. I'm really
Mm,
big on sleep.
good. Yeah, as you should. Good. I mean, I've been an aspiring morning person for for years. So I always struggle with going to bed early and getting up early. But if I can get up, if I can wake up before 8 and actually get up and doing stuff, I'm doing pretty well.
Okay, so we're probably kind of similar in a.
Yeah. I had this job not too long ago where I was going to a school for 2 weeks momentarily, and I had to get up at 6 every day, and that was tough on me. That was difficult because I don't fall asleep. That my problem is not the getting up at 6. My problem is I can never fall asleep before midnight.
Yeah,
Almost never. So
yeah. Sure. Now you have me thinking about downloading Bumble again at some point.
what was that?
I said you have me thinking about should I download Bumble again? Then I really won't get to bed at midnight.
Oh yeah,
That
man,
will keep you
download it.
up until the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, although Hinge has worked a lot better for me over the years than Bumble.
Why Hinge?
I don't know, but it just works better. I mean, the girls on Bumble are pretty flaky.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. Hinge, it's more a relationship focused app, and I like. Hey, I'm not paid by Hinge. Okay, this is free publicity, by the way. But I like their slogan in terms of it says something like the app designed to be deleted. And I'm like,
Ah,
oh, that's clever. So I think a lot of girls are looking for relationships, and on Hinge, that's
yeah.
more the focus. So a lot of times they initiate, and they're more interested in having a conversation, meeting up, getting to know you. But I don't know. That's just my take. Bumble, maybe it's more of an ego boost. You know,
And
that's
Tinder's
been my
just
experience.
yeah, Tinder, you just probably don't want to go there.
Yeah,
At
Tinder
least
is
I've
just
had some, yeah. And
kind of bad.
it'll be so funny if this comes out and you say, hey, this isn't a paid publicity. And then all of a sudden you book a Hinge commercial.
Yeah. Yes. Like, hey, it worked. It worked. My plan worked.
Well, Daniel, man, we've been talking about an hour here.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
this
right.
is awesome, dude. This has felt so good to talk with you, man. I've
Yeah.
our conversations. Hopefully, we talk again
Anytime.
sooner than what it took us to do this.
Oh yeah, but anytime, man. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. So whenever you want to have another one, I'm here.
yeah. We definitely. There's no. I look forward to bringing on especially people I can have a really good conversation. I feel like we had a really good, just free flowing conversation.
Mm-hmm.
With you, I'd just like to end with maybe, and I know you always are reading books and you're really big on self-discipline, self-improvement, which are things that I'm really into. Is there anything maybe you can leave us with in any of those realms, whether it doesn't have to be like a bunch of stuff, but if there's a book you've read recently, if there's something, a new habit you've picked up that has really, you've seen improvement in your life with, or anything you want to say, can be
In terms of giving advice to people, or just
something,
sharing something?
maybe a takeaway for people, like that they can maybe add to their life, might help them out.
Well, as this great expert, I don't know. No, I mean, I've always had an intuition for something that it's been sort of confirmed over the years, which has been the idea of the upward spiral or the downward spiral, right? And I think a lot of times we feel anxious, we feel out of control, we feel like everybody else is doing better than we do, you know? And I think if we can just get to a place where we only compare ourselves to who we were yesterday and we only compare ourselves to ourselves, and if we can just start getting little things in order, this is kind of the idea that Jordan Peterson was saying about clean your room, and compare. That's actually another one of his rules: compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. You know. So, and it doesn't have to be Jordan Peterson; it could be anyone. But I'm just saying, because that could go into the whole political thing, and you know. But I'm just think that. And this is another sentence that Kobe used to say, like, control what you can. You know, there's lots of things that are outside of our control. So why worry about those things? Control about whether it's cleaning your room or your car or your house, whether it's exercising and getting healthier, whether it's reading more, working harder on your auditions or on getting auditions, or improving yourself in order to date, you know, to mature as a man, or whatever the case may be. But there's always a lot of things that are in your control. So line them up and tackle them one by one.
Brilliant. I love it.
That's what
I love it. And if people were to want to follow you and check you out, your amazing commercials you've been in, eventually a Hinge commercial one day.
Yes.
Where should they follow you?
Well, my Daniel J. Silva is my full name, actor name. So that's my website, Daniel J. Silva. That's my Instagram, Daniel J. Silva. Or I think it's at Daniel John Silva, but you could find me by Daniel J. Silva. That's my Twitter. That's my Facebook. That's everything. And you'll see commercials. You'll see the little stuff I've done. So, yeah.
Awesome. And not sure when I hit end if we'll lose. So if we can just do a quick picture. Smile or thumbs up or anything you want on the count of 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Perfect, man.
Well, Dan, all right. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, Sam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You're an amazing guest. And yeah, definitely we'll have to do something else in the future. I mean, I'm reminded why you and I connected early. I really value our conversations, and you know, I have a lot of respect, you know, for your discipline and your work ethic. So,
well, thank you, and maybe we could start a book club or something. You know,
sign me up.
All right. Well, I'll think about it and get back to you. Maybe we can get 3 or 4 of us together and get it going, or a movie club. You know.
Yeah, even just we'll shoot with this Zoom. You can pick a new movie each month or a new book each month and just talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. And there is Sam Dever Book Club on Instagram, at Sam Dever Book Club. But that's just kind of books I just post. But actual book club with communication and talking would be great.
Cool. All right, let's do it, Sam. Great to see you, and talk soon.
Sounds good, brother. See you, Daniel.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.